Some of us come in, we have these pictures in our brains of what we think it's going to look like for us to be married and what our relationships will be. And this was painted by our parents, right? It was painted by, or the people that raised us. Or it's the opposite, right? Or it's the opposite of the way our parents raised us. We either come into our relationships wanting to be exactly like our parents or nothing like our parents. And even if you're not consciously thinking about that, in the back of your brain, these things are shaping kind of your hopes for your relationships. We come into our relationships with very specific pictures about time. I have to be on time everywhere that I go. I don't like being late. In fact, when I'm late, it actually stresses me out. That's not the same for my wife in any way, shape, or form. She's more of a, like my dad used to say, they can't start without us kind of thing. And so that's really her picture on things. But sometimes we come into our relationships with hopes and dreams and desires about travel, right? And I know I came into our relationship thinking we're going to have kids, after 5 or 6 years after we've been married, and we're going to travel for the first several years. Spoiler alert, we got married in March and Shanna got pregnant with our first in May of the first year. So we've been parents almost as long as we had been married. And so we came in with those hopes and dreams and desires too. The other one that we come into with a lot, our faith. Right? Our faith is a particular hope. For me, I grew up, and I picked this cross on purpose because I grew up in much more of kind of a high church, if you're a church person. They had choirs and pipe organs and stuff was kind of the church that I grew up in. I know that sounds crazy, like the guy in jeans on stage grew up in a church like that. One of the first churches I pastored, the pastor had to wear a robe. It's like that kind of thing, okay? My wife did not grow up in that way in any way, shape, or form. In fact, she grew up in Appalachia in far eastern Kentucky, and their church had a bluegrass band, so like a banjo, and I remember the first time I walked in, and the pastor was one of those pastors that you don't talk, you yell. You ever been in one of those churches before? That was kind of her picture of church, and my picture of church, totally different things. She went to church with me and wanted to fall asleep, and I went to her church and thought, we need to call somebody. Like, this is not, something's kind of off, right? But this was my hope. I thought, again, this is what church is going to look like for us, and I came into our relationship thinking that's exactly what she was going to think too. This was my hope, and then again, we come in with these pictures of what our homes are going to look like, right? I envisioned the house with the white picket fence and a farmhouse, which is what I grew up in. I thought we would have the same, and just expected when I came into my relationship with my wife, this is exactly what she's going to want as well. And the other thing that we bring into our relationship besides hopes, dreams, and desires, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but we bring our traumas, okay? We bring our wounds, and this is just a nail, but we bring those sharp things that happened to us when we were young, or maybe sharp things that we had in our previous relationships, and then they create these kind of like rock-hard, bitter things in our hearts. And we bring all this stuff too. And so it's hopes and dreams and desires, but they're shaped sometimes not just by experiences, but by trauma and by junk and by bitterness and by hardness of heart. And some of it we earned, if I had been through your story, I would feel the same way you do, I'm sure, okay? So I'm not negating any of that. I just want to own the fact that we bring all of that with us into our relationships. And then what's interesting that happens is those hopes, dreams, and desires, they turn into expectations, right? And the crazy thing is, if I could cover this, and hide this, oftentimes when we enter into our relationships, we don't talk about this stuff. But it becomes this basket that we've carried with us, and then we hand to our potential spouse and say, love me this way. This is the way I want to be loved. And what I learned in my early 20s when I got married, because I don't know how this worked for you all with your significant others, or if you're dating right now, and I don't know how you look at this, but for us, we were like the couple that made everybody sick. They're just so in love, they're gross, and we don't like them. That was us in college. She was 17 and I was 18. We met right out of high school. She was really the longest relationship I've ever had now. But even to that point, I hadn't dated many people before her. I just kind of met her and fell in love with her, and she, that was it. And we were just like the rose-colored glasses, ooey gooey, kind of like that was the glue of our relationship, okay? And so, I looked at her and I thought, she knows everything about me. And she looked at me and thought, she knows everything about me. And the reality was that it was far from the case, because I had a whole box of this stuff that were hopes, dreams, and desires that I had internally turned into expectations. And so what happened in the first year of our marriage? Well, those expectations actually started to erode all of that rose-colored glasses stuff because she didn't know how to love me in the way that I wanted to do our time because I had never told her. And she didn't know how to love me in the way that I wanted to do our money because I'd really never talked to her about it. And she didn't know how to love me in the way that like all my wounds required because I hadn't really talked about those things. I thought when we, and listen, I want you all to know this too. This is really important. When we were dating, we talked a lot, okay? I don't know whether you all do this with your married, if you're married now or you started out this way. You talk way more when you're dating and engaged than you do when you get married. The communication diminishes, okay? Let's just be honest, it does, all right? And so we talked a bunch, and I thought we talked about everything we needed to talk to. But the problem was we both had baskets full of expectations that we'd never voiced. Because there were hopes, dreams, and desires that it turned into. This is just the way it's going to be, but we'd actually never voiced it before. Let's remember what an expectation is, okay? Don't miss this. An expectation is the strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future. It's a strong belief that something that should happen will happen. And those are shaped by, again, our environments, our hopes, the things we grew up with, the pictures we have in our brains. And sometimes we talk about these things and sometimes we don't. And when we don't, it creates a lot of drama. Now, hold that thought because we are in a series called Love-ology, and we are on an exploration, okay? The idea of this is we're trying to build a case file for what love actually is. It's built on this idea that we are all being formed in the way that we're loving. Like we've been formed into a way of loving, all right? It's not something that we just innately knew. It's something that was shaped by faith, if you have it. It was shaped by the environment you live in. It was shaped by your parents, good or bad or whatever. It was shaped by your friends, good or bad or whatever. It was shaped by previous relationships. It's shaped by TV. It's shaped by media. And it's constantly being formed. And the way that we are loving is being formed. It's not something we knew, which means it's a learned behavior in many ways. Now, we have desire, and I'm going to tell you how I think that came from God, just from my own bias. But we are learning how to do this. And the other theory that I have, and the reason we're doing this is because the way most of us think about love isn't strong enough to support the relationships we actually want. Like the relationships we dream of, right? The ones that look like the happily ever after moments, and the ones that support each other through thick and thin, the ones that live up to the vows that say, till death do us part, right? The ones that live up to the in sickness and in health, in good times and in bad. That kind of relationship isn't necessarily supported by the kind of love that we seem to be drawn to in our culture, in this world today. And so the way we think about love, the way we discover love, the way we think about it and it kind of shows up in our brains isn't actually strong enough to give us what we're looking for. And what we're looking for, and I know this about you, whether you're a Jesus follower or not, because this is how we're all wired, what we're looking for is love that is real and deep and safe and lasting. This is how we want to be loved. This is how we want to be loved. But the challenge we talked about last week and the thing we got to keep digging into today is in order to be loved this way, we have to know how to give this love too. That it's actually a both and, not just again, when it becomes an expectation that we hand to our partner saying, this is exactly what I want you to do for me, and then there's no reciprocation, it's hard to have a love that is real and deep and safe and lasting, right? It's difficult to do. Now let's go back to this expectation for a minute, okay? So I want to put it to you this way, just to think about for a minute. Attempting to recreate or avoid something from the past transforms hopes, dreams, and desires into expectations. It's always shaped by something that's already happened to us, right? Expectations come from something we've experienced or something that's come from the past. And again, this is in every relationship, not just the love relationships. I'm talking about the ones with your friendships, the relationship you have with your kids. This is just a generic thing. When we have expectations, they've been shaped by an attempt to recreate or avoid something that's already happened to us. And the avoid is typically because we felt pain, and the recreate is because we typically felt something really good, and we wanted to make sure we could keep that. It felt like the butterflies in your chest and all of the wonderful things. We want to have that again, right? But it takes all those hopes and dreams and desires, which are not bad, right? I mean, my hope about the way we were going to do time and travel, and my hope about romance and the picture that I had, none of those were bad. But the moment that it became a you have to, that I'd never voiced, it actually put a burden on my wife she couldn't fulfill. And then it created a space for resentment because relationships break down when love gets reduced to exchange. Every relationship, right? Not just the one you're dating, not just the one in your marriage, like every relationship you have, if it gets reduced to exchange, it's going to break down because it's then what am I getting from you? You know people like this. Like I have friends that operate in this mentality to me. They only call me when they need something. And it's hard, right? You know why that phone call's coming, and it's because they need something in that moment. And when it's been reduced to exchange, well, then it's like we already know what's coming, and it creates a debt-debtor relationship. Any of y'all got a loan? Like, do you feel like you have a loving relationship with the bank you have a loan from? Like you just feel like so supported and affirmed, and it feels real and lasting and deep. And you feel like the person who has your loan knows you on a first-name basis and wants what's best for you? No. They want you to give you their money back, right? And they want theirs from it. They want their interest. They want the debt to be paid. And the thing is, look, we don't want to admit this, okay? We don't. But so many marriages and so many relationships are operating in a debt-debtor function. This is what we do. What can I get from you? And I talked to the parents at Outback last night about this idea of mature and immature love. Immature love is I love you because I need something from you. And mature love is I need you, therefore I love you. I desire to be with you. Like you're not fulfilling anything in me. I want to be with you. It's a deep-rooted desire. It's not a debtor in any way, shape, or form. I don't have expectations that you can't fulfill. Now, let me sidebar, okay? There are basic expectations that should exist in every marriage. Fidelity, like oneness, honesty, integrity. Those are not bad things, okay? Those are not typical hope, dreams, and expectations that you should avoid. I'm talking about the stuff where it's like, well, I'm only going to love you if you load the dishwasher the way that I want you to load it. And every time you don't, I'm going to make you feel really guilty about it. I only say that because loading the dishwasher, I saw this meme recently that said that in every relationship, there's one person that loads the dishwasher like a Roman architect and another that loads it like a feral, rabid raccoon. I am the Roman architect in our relationship, and I sort the forks and like everything's got its proper place. Everyone else in my household throws it in there blindly. It drives me insane, right? And if I were to be so offended by that expectation that I created a debt for the rest of my family, that every time they did that, I held it against them and then forced them to pay me back in some way before we could be on even terms again, that's what a debt-debtor relationship looks like. Now, that's a really silly example. But we know that in marriage, it's so tempting to get to a place where I have to pay you back for what you've done to me, or you have to pay me back for what I've done to you. Like this give and take becomes debt-debtor, not submission anymore. It's you owe me. See, the other thing that happens is expectations remove the margin necessary for love to actually be recognized or appreciated. Because if it's an expectation, right? If I only, like one of the things, again, if I only buy flowers for my wife on those random days because I put it in my phone because she required me to do it, right? She can't appreciate that because it's not something to be appreciated. It's fulfilling a requirement, right? And vice versa. If my wife shows up on time to something, right? And I did it, she knew there was an expectation that I put on her and it was going to, there'd be heck to pay if she had not. How can it be recognized or appreciated? Because then all of a sudden it's just something she was forced to do. And look, this exists in our relationships all the time. I love it because the Bible even talks about this. 2,000 years ago, when the brother of Jesus was writing about relationships, do you know what he said? Listen to what he said to this. He says this in James 4:1. Wait for it. There it is. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? Right? In other words, he's going like, what is it you actually fight about? Isn't it the fact that you have all these desires that have become expectations? And your relationships are struggling because of these expectations you've created for one another, and they're causing quarrels because you think this is the way it has to be, and you're holding so strongly to it that you can't let it go? And hear my heart, I know that James, the brother of Jesus, had expectations that were healthy in his relationships too. And so we're not talking about those healthy things. We're talking about all the stuff that we place on our significant others that they can't fulfill, and we resent them for it. Now, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? Listen how he continues, verse 2. You desire, but you don't have, so you kill. That's really strong. You covet, but you cannot get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. It's like, this is what you do, and so you have to destroy something in order to get your way. You know what acts like this? Please forgive me for being so blunt about this, but like, this is kind of the way that my kids acted when they were 3. Everybody says 2 is bad. I'm sorry, parents, 3 is the worst. Okay, 3 is like the worst. I think my kids learned the word no, and they fought just for the heck of it with us. It felt like, can I please keep you from dying? No, like, this doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense to me. They fought for no reason. Like, this is the kind of stuff that my 3-year-olds used to do. We're like, well, I'm not getting my way, so I'm going to make you feel bad for not giving me my way. And then we operating like this in our relationships and wonder why they keep messing up. And James, the brother of Jesus, thousands of years ago said we ought not do that. And so we've known for a while. So why is it so natural? Well, again, I think it's because we've been formed to look at love this way. We have this very specific picture of love as a culture that's actually really broken. It's not from God. It's not from the way of Jesus, as we talked about last week. It's actually from external sources and factors and trauma and all sorts of things that God can do better if we let him. But that we don't necessarily let him. And remember, one more thing about expectations, then I'm going to move on from this, okay? Expectations are often old stories showing up in present relationships, right? They're often old stories that show up in present relationships, right? Which is why, again, when you think about the way that your relationships exist, the good ones, the bad ones, everything else, you can only act on what you know, and you can only act on the experience that you've had. This is just how your brain works. So this is not a Jesus follower thing. It's just a human thing. So all of us are operating with these preconceived notions, these stories that are running in the back of our minds all the time, and I'm just arguing we should have a better story. I mean, the essence of this is we're trying to discover what's the actual story of love. And can we just own for a minute that love is a junk drawer of a word that we dump all sorts of ideas in? Right? You know that drawer in your kitchen that you've got all sorts of stuff in that you just shove it in there so no one will see it? We have one of those too. Even as OCD as I am, we have one of those drawers. You just open it, rake it off the counter, shut it, and pretend it's not there anymore. Love is a junk drawer that we dump all sorts of ideas in. Let me prove it to you. Here are 2 statements that I say at least on a weekly basis. I love Jesus and I love chicken nachos. I do. I love Jesus and I love chicken nachos. But can I possibly mean both of these phrases in the same way? Right? Do I love Jesus in the same way? Do I love chicken nachos in the same way that I love Jesus? Right? We take this word love and we use it for all sorts of stuff. And we use it in all sorts of contexts. And I'm not saying you should stop using the word love. But we have to acknowledge, we have to own at least that this word is complicated. It's complicated. Because the Savior of the universe means a whole lot more to me than my chicken nachos that I get from Jalapenos, which are delicious, by the way, and I'll have to eat some with you sometime if you really want to. They're fantastic. I can't mean those things in the same way. And this creates a huge problem for us as people. You know why? Because we can love the right things in the wrong order. Now, I gave you a silly example of Jesus and nachos, okay? But think about how this works in your relationships. I mean, you say you love the person, right? Right? This person that you're in a relationship with, I love you, right? You say that to that person. But then also attached to all of that are all these behaviors and all these habits and all these hang-ups and things that come with that person. And the interesting thing that we're able to get over early on in our relationship, with a long word together, it seems to be more difficult, is that junk doesn't really go away. I mean, we're formed into the people that we are. And when you marry somebody, you get them, baggage and all. My wife had one of these boxes that she was trying to hand to me, just like I had one that I was trying to hand to her. We can actually love the right things in the wrong order. Well, I love you, but I also don't like, I love you being more organized way more, right? Or I love you being, more prompt way more. I love you being more romantic way more. And we can actually love the right things in the wrong order, or like worse, we can put other things ahead of our significant others. We can put other things above God, okay? Now look, if you're not a Jesus follower, I get that what I'm about to say probably doesn't apply to you. I hope that you will come to grips with what I'm about to say in a minute about love and see that he has a better picture. But for those of us that are Jesus followers, God said, right, that we love the Lord our God first. So our priority list should be Jesus follower and then everyone else. And if it's not that way, then it actually messes up the way we love everybody underneath of us. Because I've come to realize I follow God. I'm a Christian first, then I'm a husband, then I'm a father, then I'm a whatever else. And I've come to realize that I can't be a good husband unless I'm a good Jesus follower. And I can't be a good dad unless I'm a good husband and a good Jesus follower. And I can't be a good pastor unless I'm a good dad and a good husband and a good Jesus follower. Do you see how everything is in a hierarchy? And St. Augustine actually talked about this a lot more than I'm going to have time to talk about it today. But we can actually love the right things in the wrong order. And when we do that, it messes up everything underneath. Now, again, all my cards on the table, I'm a Jesus follower. We're in church, so you should expect this is coming. But to me, the thing that we have gotten so wrong in culture is that we've allowed love to be defined by all sorts of sources that never should have been able to define it in the first place. And look, I love myself a good Disney movie, and I'm a sucker for a rom-com. I know I sound like a strange dude, but I'm telling you, it's okay, all right? It's okay. It's fine. We're going to be fine, right? I love all that stuff, right? But the truth is, love and marriage and sexuality and romance all came from God. They all came from God. Read Genesis 1, okay? They all came from God. These are gifts. And I know in church, a lot of times we talk about these things like there's church and then there's the rest of this stuff. And I don't know, over the past probably 30 years, it's been really, how do I put this, like a resurgence, or we're doing a better job of this. But in the youth group that I grew up in, we didn't talk about any of these things, which is crazy, okay? I mean, where is your dating relationship going to begin? Well, when you're in your teens, right? Why are we not talking about this more with our students? But like we didn't. It was like almost like taboo. And so what happens is we grow up as adults and we think God doesn't have much to say to these things, which is quite the opposite, because God made them. And if they came from God, that means he has a picture of the way that they should look. And if he has a picture of the way they should look, that's probably better than what we could come up with on our own. And my argument that I started last week, and I want to continue with you this week, is the reason that so many relationships are failing in our country and in our world right now is because we're not letting God be the one that tells us what this should look like. We're letting anybody else, so we're letting our emotions or our feelings tell us what this should look like, right? Or we're letting our expectations tell us what this should look like. Now, last week I introduced you to a term probably really familiar to many of you all. It's called agape. We added the first piece to our case file last week. It looks like this. Go to the next slide for me, man. Thank you. It's agape, right? It's God-shaped love. This is the word for love in the New Testament that Jesus uses most often. There were like 4 different words in the New Testament that are used for love, but 2 of them are derogatory, and one of them is more like we're friends. And this one was the God-shaped, self-giving, faithful, sacrificial love shaped by God. When Jesus said, "Love your neighbor as yourself," and when he says that you should love one another as I have loved you, he used the word agape, right? And why this matters is he said the love that we as Jesus followers are supposed to kind of cling to is this self-sacrificial love. This I love you in spite of yourself. I love you no matter what is unconditional. Now there's another word for love that I want to give you this week. We're going to add one more word to our case file as we continue moving through this series. And this one is actually an Old Testament word. And the Old Testament word for love, covenant love, is ahava. Ahava, all right? So you learned a Hebrew word. Look at you. You can speak Hebrew. You know an entire word now. You can add that to your lexicon. If you work it into a sentence this week and you post it back to me, I'll be super impressed. Anyway, ahava, it's covenant love. When God spoke to his people about the commitment that he was making to them, it wasn't necessarily this unconditional love that agape is. It was I'm making a covenant with you. And no matter what you do, no matter what you've done, I am fully committed to you. This is an unbreakable commitment, is the word ahava. So last week we talked about this. I'm going to move completely in your direction, and this is in spite of yourself. The next one is this is a love that won't break. It's a bond, right? Ahava is this bond. It's attraction can start a relationship, but it's not strong enough to sustain one by itself. Ahava is. And the craziest place that this word shows up, okay, it shows up throughout the Old Testament, places like Deuteronomy when God says, "Love the Lord your God." Multiple different places where Abraham talks about love. But the place that it shows up the most ironically is actually in a little book that we never talk about in church called Song of Songs, or Song of Solomon, depending on what translation you have. And the book is kind of strange. So let's just get this out of the way right now. It's actually kind of a love poem that Solomon wrote. And it's kind of like sappy and romantic. And it feels like an odd placement in the Old Testament when you just get done reading things like, prophets who are pronouncing doom and then all of a sudden you get Song of Songs. But anyway, this poem that Solomon wrote about love and what it's supposed to look like, this is what he says. And I changed it, this is the NIV, but I just changed the word love to ahava because that's the word that was used. So hear me out, here we go. Place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm, for ahava, love, is as strong as death. In other words, it's coming, right? All of us, spoiler, I hope this doesn't hurt your day or ruin your weekend, but all of us will die. That's the promise that we understand about life, right? It is as strong as guaranteed as death. This covenant love is as guaranteed as that. Its jealousy is unyielding as the grave. It burns like a blazing fire, like a mighty flame, right? It burns like a flame that's not going to be put out. It cannot be stopped. It continues like this. Many waters cannot quench ahava. Rivers cannot sweep it away. If one were to give all the wealth of one's house for ahava, it would be utterly scorned. In fact, this is the ultimate covenant love. And the crazy thing is, this is what's beautiful. Okay, let's just step out of the marriage thing and talk about God for a minute. This is what God has committed to you. Do you realize this? And he proved it. He proved it in the gift of Jesus, right? He proved how committed am I to you? I will die for you. This is how far this covenant, this promise from God has gone, right? He ahavas you all the way to the cross. He is covenant love connected to you all the way to the cross. So let's just throw a couple terms around this so you understand what this word means. Ahava is a bond to live inside. Okay, it's a bond to live inside. That was the commitment. This covenant becomes a place, like it's going to become the bounds of our relationship, and we're just going to sit in it together. This is what God had committed to them. And so this ahava word, then, it's incredible because it can't be quenched, and it can't be broken, and it can't be stopped. And the love that God sheds out to us, the way he teaches us to love, is to look at it in that direction. But ahava love is also love that can burn with passion without collapsing into instability. Because, and I feel like I pick on young couples a lot. I'm not, okay? So young people, I'm not picking on you. I promise I'm not. I just want to point out a reality because I lived in it, and then I'll tell you how we as older couples could learn a lot from you, okay? So hear me out. The thing that I always get, like so common, is when, a young couple, they come and ask me to do their wedding, and they're so excited, and I sit down with them, I'm like, tell me a little bit about your relationship, and they've never fought. They've never had any crosswords they've said to each other, and everything is lovey-dovey, and it's so perfect, and it's beautiful, and I'm like, this is so cute, right? This is amazing. This is incredible. The problem we learned as older couples is that doesn't sustain a long time, does it? Because eventually you have to move in with one another, right, and get married, and then they're going to fold the towels wrong, or they're going to put the fitted sheet in the closet the wrong way, or they snore and you didn't know, or the way they eat drives you insane, or all of a sudden you actually have one of these expectations that pops up that you didn't know anything about. You knew nothing about it because you hadn't talked about it. Right? And that passion that you had at the beginning becomes very unstable because it's not supported by a bond you've stepped into, it's supported by an emotion that you felt. It's supported by an emotion that you felt. And what God says about love is it's a bond to live in. It's actually something you should step inside, and it's a commitment that you make to each other, which means ahava is a love that can be commanded and cultivated, guarded, and I love this. This is the most important thing, and renewed. How many times, look through the Old Testament, God makes this commitment. You're going to be my people. I will ahava you. You will love me, and I will love you. This will be the commitment we have together. This is the promise. In the book of Exodus, in the book of Deuteronomy, all through the first 5 books of the Old Testament, God makes this commitment. And he makes multiple commitments. Why? Because the Israelites kept messing it up. I mean, the Old Testament, I'm not trying to pick on them, but it was a roller coaster of them going, oh, we love you. Oh, we love you. And oh my gosh, we want to go back to Egypt. Oh, we love you. Oh my gosh, what have we done? And it was just up and down and up and down and up and down. And what happened was God continually renewed the covenant because he understood we're just dumb humans, right? We're just dumb humans, and we constantly need the reminder. But the thing that held them together was the commitment and the ahava that they had chosen to step into together. And it can be renewed, it can be guarded, it can be cultivated, it can be grown, right? And in God's case, for his people, it can be commanded. Look, this is what I've done. And so this is how this is going to work. And look, I want to be as gentle as I can when I say this to us as married couples. Okay? My wife and I have been together longer than we haven't been. Like I said, we met when we were 18. I'm 41 now, okay? So we've been together longer than we had not been. We've been married almost as long, right? I mean, we're quickly approaching 20 years will be next year, right? And so in 20 years of marriage, what I've come to realize is that the ups and downs that we have in our relationship, which we have, okay? I don't want you to think that we're like don't look at us and go, oh, they're perfect. We should be just like them. We have our ups and downs just like everybody else does. But the difference is we have our ups and downs within the bounds of the commitment we've made to each other. We have our ups and downs within the bounds of the commitment of love that we've made for one another. I mean, she still has to put up with my junk, okay? She has to put up with my junk all the time. God, that woman is going to have a huge crown. When she gets to heaven, it's going to have lots of jewels, and it'll be amazing what she's had to fool with putting up with me as her husband. And I'm not allowed to say the vice versa, but y'all can just think about that, and hopefully my wife won't watch this tape later. You understand what I'm saying? It can be commanded, it can be cultivated, it can be expected. If you want to have an expectation in your relationship, it ought to be this. It ought to be a hava. And so young people that are dating right now, lend me your ears for just a moment. What you're looking for is not a Hallmark movie, all right? It's not a Disney movie. It's not anything dirty and awful you can find on the internet either. What you're looking for is what God built, and it's this. This is what you should strive for. This is what you should expect. And understand, my beautiful friends, we all have one of these baskets. And you can make a decision to keep carrying it and throwing it at the person you want to love you, or you can set it down and understand this about yourself. And then, again, within this beautiful circle you're going to draw around yourselves, you both can set your baskets down. Your trauma's going to pop up because mine does all the time and hers does all the time. You think about this, we're both the first kid in our house. We were both the first grandkid, which meant we were both used to getting our way. Then we got married, right? And I grew up in a house where, my parents' relationship was kind of rocky, and my wife was actually adopted out of a very broken home, and so we had all sorts of messed up pictures of what relationships should look like, right? But we drew a circle, and then we stepped into it. And we have fought and battled and cultivated and guarded and renewed a hava ever since. And I think that's what real relationship is supposed to look like. A hava is love expressed as chosen, relational devotion. I choose you. I don't need you. One of the greatest gifts my father-in-law gave me, and I'm going to say this to every guy that comes to try to take one of my daughters out and ask for their hand in marriage, the best gift my father-in-law ever gave me, the healthy one, the one my wife's adopted father. He looked at me, he said, Drew, I've raised her not to need you. She doesn't need you. She wants you. She wants to be with you, but she doesn't need you. And that was a beautiful gift because that meant that she was choosing me, and I was choosing her. And the choice was relational devotion to one another. And again, don't miss that this is the way God loves you. God doesn't need you. He chose you. Do you realize this is the gift of Jesus? God chose you, and you, and you, and you. He chose me. Of all the broken messes that God could lean into, he chose to lean into us, and he chose us. And he expresses his love through relational devotion. That's why we talk a lot about time about having a relationship with Jesus. Your relationship with Jesus should reflect the relationship you have with your significant other. They should be affected by each other. Because it's supposed to look like this. It's a circle you draw around yourself and you step inside it, and good, bad, or whatever, we're going to figure this out. Love must also be rightly ordered, faithfully expressed, and guarded at the heart level. Okay, this is probably the biggest key. Is we have to understand that this is actually happening inside of us, that there's all sorts of stuff that's going on inside of us. It's not just a conscious choice that happens up here in our intellect. It happens down here in our souls, in our hearts, in our emotions. That happens at a level that we may not even be fully conscious of, and which means that it's got to be rightly ordered, and it's got to be guarded and expressed in the right way. And I think, again, all my cards on the table, I think God can do a better job of this and help us do a better job of this than culture can. I think God can show us a better way of loving because he built it than anybody else can. And we have to understand that constantly, we are being shaped and transformed by voices outside of us that may not want what's best for our relationships. They may not. The voices inside you might not want what's best for your relationship. Do you realize that? Because again, you get a box of stuff. And so it's intentionality that carries the day in relationships. It's being awake. It's being, it is being guarded at the heart level. And I feel like, again, I just one more push on this and I'm done, I promise. I just feel like following Jesus sets you up to be more successful in this than any other choice you can make in your relationship. This is why we're talking about it in church. Because otherwise, this could be like a marriage conference telethon. You just go watch 3 videos and do 8 steps and you're good to go. No. This is a Christian, this is a Jesus follower thing. And if we want to not be a statistic, right? If we want to be in a place where the love that I want and the relationship that I want, if I want a love that's going to support the kind of relationship that I want, then it's going to have to look like this. So how do you get there? Well, here's a few things that I think you can start doing this week. Given everything that I've said, here's 3 things that I think you can do this week that'll start getting you in this direction. Number 1, notice your pattern. Look for these things, okay? What are the things that your spouse does, and when they do them, it causes the hair on the back of your neck to stand up in an uncomfortable way? Again, I don't know what they are. I tend to, I was thinking about this the other day. When it comes to my kids playing sports, I have this tendency, this crazy thing happens to me. I'm usually a very reserved person. When you sit down in my office, I can be guarded and emotionless and give you wise wisdom. But if somebody hurts my kid on a soccer field, there's something that comes out of me that I can't fully explain. In a way that I'm going to embarrass this church one day. I got to be careful, right? Notice those things. Notice the reactions that happen in you that you didn't know where they were coming from, right? Notice the pattern. How does that happen and why? What is the expectation that's tied to that? Number 2, the name where it came from. Name your formation. What formed that in me? Was it a healthy thing? Was it God that said I should be feeling this way? Was it culture that said I should be feeling this way? Was it my reaction to my mom and dad's relationship that said I should be feeling this way? Was it a Hallmark movie that I watched? Why? What formed me to think this way? Number 3, last one, surrender that formation. This is what's so great about being a human being, okay? This is what's so great about what God promises us. God makes these consistent promises to us that he wants to form us, that he gave us the gift of the Holy Spirit, not so that we would stay stagnant, but that he would grow us. And all we got to do is go, you win. Okay, God, I have this expectation of my wife that is unhealthy. It's unhealthy. And I want to let it go because I love her. Right? I have this expectation of my husband that is unhealthy, and I don't want to let it go because I love him. I have this picture that's not a good picture because it was given to me by something that wasn't you, and I want to let it go. I surrender you, God, to give me a better picture. You surrender that formation, and you say, God, you win. And here's what happens. You know what also happens when you surrender your formation? Not only does God win in your life, you and your spouse win. You and your significant other win. Your relationship wins. Because if you're constantly trying to hold the line, there has to be a winner and a loser, and it's going to be one of you all in the relationship. But when you surrender it, it becomes a submission competition. When your relationship becomes a submission competition, you both win, and your relationship wins. Right? You just step in and you go, okay, God, help me to see a better lens of the way this could look. Help me to see a better lens of love. Help me to see a better lens of relationship and dating and marriage and all those things, the one that you gave me. And when you surrender it, I guarantee you that your relationship will grow and get better because God knows better than we do. A couple of discussion questions to help you get there along the way. Number 1, what relationship pattern reaction keeps showing up in your life, and what might that reveal about how you've been formed to love? Number 2, when your hopes, dreams, and desires become expectations, how does that usually affect the way you treat people closest to you? And number 3, what would it look like for you this week to move from expectations-driven love to ahava, a more faithful, steady, spirit-formed kind of love? I'd love to pray for you as you sort that out. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, thank you for these people that are gathered here today. Thank you for teaching us what love is. God, I know that this is hard. And this is step 1, probably the tip of an iceberg, and so many conversations that have to happen. I just pray for your Spirit to be amongst those conversations. And I just pray that people will take what I'm trying to say and translate it into what you want them to hear to grow in the love that you have for them. Help people to understand how much you love them so unconditionally, and that this covenant you've made with us, this promise you've made to us to love us is unbreakable. God, we love you and we trust you, and we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all for coming to TCAT.